to Real People, Real Matters with Diana Tulchinsky. My first guests, Amy Ticho and Rosa Nevin. Please tell me how you started Promenade Players.
Well, actually, we started when Amy and one of the other founding members, Tim Walsh, called one day and said, we have a script and we'd like to do it and we'd like you to direct it, and we have a very good friend, Ryan Elliott, who's a producer. Right. So basically the four of us got together. We looked at this script called Botanic Garden, which is a lovely piece written by a local playwright,
Todd Logan. And we planned on just workshopping it and sort of seeing where it went from there. And we ended up producing it at the Glenview Book Market.
So I don't know if people are familiar with the book market at the Glen, which is sort of a little treasure in the Glen. It's a great bookstore. The staff couldn't be more welcoming or knowledgeable. And when we were looking for a place to do the production, Amy and her husband went out to dinner, and then they were walking by the book market, and
we saw this space. It was huge. It looked like a performance space, just a big empty room. And so we walked in and said, do you ever have performances there? And he said, as a matter of fact, we do. And we started a relationship with these lovely people and ended up doing it there.
It's a wonderful space. Originally, we had talked about doing it at the Grove.
Oh, yes.
Which
is gorgeous.
Gorgeous. And the Grove has this beautiful pavilion, which is a very popular wedding destination, as everyone knows, except us, because we were really, really hopeful that they would have availability that summer for us to perform it outside in the Grove. And of course, they're booked, for the next 25 years. So, Plan B, Amy and Josh, her husband, just started talking to Scott, and we went in and we got to basically transform the space into a theater.
Yeah.
We brought up lights and we masked the windows and we had seats, and it transformed into a wonderful theater space.
Black box.
Yeah.
Rosa, how did you become the director of the play?
Luck. So Amy and I are both speech coaches at GBN and at GBS. So we're very familiar with, directing kids in scenes and monologues and things like that. And Amy and I have been doing theater we're trying to figure it out, 12 years or so.
Yeah.
And so we've done enough in front of, on the stage, and we've actually worked with some really wonderful directors. So you do sort of, learn a lot as you act.
When Tim and I got together and found this script, and we thought about who we wanted to direct us, we both came up with Rosa's name, and a terrific insight, and always had interesting points of view on whenever we were in a show together, and we thought, let's give it a try. It was lots of fun.
It was very lucky, and it was a great gift, because I'd never done it, and
she was amazing.
Enjoyed it tremendously, and it was a lot of work, but the best part about it was when you have two actors that you trust completely, and you know the caliber of their work, and you know who they are, and you know they're always going to be prepared and be there for you. It was sort of, it sounds like a love fest, but it kind of was. So we're hoping all the other things that we do are this wonderful, but that really was a great gift to be my first directing foray into the directing world, and it was with these people because they were just wonderful.
Tell me, what is the meaning behind Botanical Gardens? Is it about nostalgia or grief or letting go? Like, why did you like that play?
Yeah, well, Botanic Gardens was the play that we did at the book market, and it is about a woman whose husband passes away, and she has to, with the help of her husband, deceased husband, who's sort of
Comes
hangs
back
around.
as a ghost.
Is it like Macbeth or no? No, it's not a haunting.
It's a little less spooky.
Yes.
And a little bit more funny. It basically, yes, he kind of hangs around the husband and guides her towards, letting go of her grief, her past, and moving on.
So there are flashbacks. She's
yes.
about to go out on a blind date, and she's sort of working that through. Yes?
A little bit panicked.
Yeah.
How did you meet the husband, or how did you decide to have your husband in the play, or like the character of the play?
Tim and we have all worked together. Tim Walsh and Rosa.
He did an
and I.
excellent job with like the scenes of having an affair and then cancer. A lot of the heavy topics in a marriage.
He's a
was
terrific
discussed.
actor, and we always wanted to do something.
It is, and we started working with the play, and directing, producing, getting it ready to go, and then we decided, well, we should really, incorporate all this into a company and move forward. So we literally sat around the table one day trying to come up with names for what we wanted our company to be. And because we don't have a permanent home, like the Oil Lamp Theater, which is a wonderful theater here in Glenview, has their home in that space, but we don't really have a home. We kind of go from space to space. So we walk from one location to the next. So walk, promenade,
Nice.
promenade players, ba-dum-bum. So that was pretty much it. And then you're Googling to make sure that the name isn't taken. And we settled on that name, and it's actually been great because, like I said, we originated here, in Glenview at the book market. This is our home. And then we're walking it over to Vernon Hills, and then we're going to walk it back. And then we have actually a couple of other spaces that we're interested in, expanding to. So, but a lot of the business takes place from Amy and my home. It's like we basically, meetings, rehearsals, we end up either at her house or my house. So we keep.
And it is a journey, this company. I mean,
a
we don't
journey.
know exactly where we're going to go or where we're going to end up, but we just continue to grow and continue to see what's out there for us.
Please tell me about the scenes. How did you get the set together in Botanical Gardens?
So Tim got all of the equipment together, and then on the day that we actually had to put it up, the Sunday before we opened, it was Amy and myself, Ryan, our producer, Amy's husband Josh, and Tim. So there was the five of us, but Amy's shoulder has been a little bit.
I have a frozen shoulder.
Frozen?
Well, it's a torn rotator cuff, not to get into it, but I can't use it.
So she's very good about, with her other shoulder, bringing you a wrench or a screwdriver or something. We had to get this enormous tower up to hang the lights, and it's just the four of us trying to lift this thing.
I mean, it's huge.
It's huge and weighs a ton.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bring it up, and I'm not, this is not going to work. And halfway up, Tim goes, "Oh, it's too high, we got to put it down." And I'm like, "Okay, put it down, put it down." So we bring the whole thing down very carefully, and I'm like, "Excuse me, I'm just going to go make a quick phone call." I called my husband, and he had plans for the day, and I'm like, "You've got to cancel everything. Everything.
Cancel everything? For
Everything.
the scene?
And bring friends." So my husband, when we met in college, he did a lot of lighting design.
Yeah.
So he came in with, his flannel shirt and his hat, and thank God, because
he was amazing.
he was amazing. Between, then we could get some manpower.
Oh, the manpower and the woman power too.
Because half of the
I
promenade
consider
players
myself
are
pretty.
Rosa and myself.
Yes.
And we're pretty useless.
And so,
not
no,
you. Yeah,
no,
I
we
am.
and because it was just the four of us, we had to do everything. We had to put the programs together. We had to put the posters together. We had to sell the tickets. And I mean, there was one day where. While the boys were doing, Tim and Dan were finalizing the lighting, Amy and I are just sitting there putting programs together like this. We had paper cuts all over the place.
Right.
So it was
a very nice play. It was very professional, even though there's only.
Thank
4
you. It was
people.
just
Well,
us.
we worked hard.
We worked very hard.
We
And
were
we're
very proud. We
Yeah.
were very proud of the final product. So that was just wonderful.
And do you have experience in like adult theater or soaps or?
Funny you should ask.
Soap opera?
So a billion years ago, feels like, 1987, I started on All My Children, which is now no longer
Yes,
in existence. So I had just gotten married, and I started working in New York 6 months later, and did that for 3 years. And then my husband and I moved back to California for another few years. And then in 1994, when we were moving to Chicago, to Glenview actually, I went back for another couple of years. So I did All My Children for almost 5 years. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And it's a wonderful show because I know it's hugely popular in this area, or it was.
Oh, yeah.
It was. Yes, I remember growing up with that.
I used to schedule my classes around it.
I've had young people come up and say, I used to watch you when I was little.
That
Which
must
is
feel
so
good.
great.
It is. It is.
It actually is. But it's just like, I used to watch you when I was a kid. And I was like, okay.
Why did you settle in Glenview? I mean, out of all the places like California and New York.
You know what? I grew up in New York, and then my husband and I moved to Miami, and then we lived in LA. And his family is from Wilmette.
Oh, yeah.
And when we would come visit, we always loved the Glenview area. It just felt very welcoming, and we love the schools. You know, when you start thinking about having kids, you can't really beat the school districts that we have here. And so we made this like square of where we wanted to look for houses, and in one weekend we got the place that we've been in for almost 25 years.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
That's a great story.
Amy, how did you become a teacher?
Well, I after my kids were kind of school age, my husband, I had been a theater major at Grinnell College, and I was a legal secretary for a while. And then my husband said, if you want to go back and get a master's in teaching, you know, let's do that for you. And it was a match made in heaven. I loved going back to school in my 40s, and lots of fun. And then I got this job at Glenbrook North, and I've been having a blast. It's a lovely place to be.
When did you start working with the speech students?
When was that? When did I bring Jerry on? Maybe 7 or 8 years
Yeah,
ago?
I think so.
Yeah.
And how is it important? Like, how do you work with their self-esteem, their pride? How do you work with them?
Speech, it's one of the best
It is.
things that I think it's one of those clubs or activities that a lot of students are not familiar with,
Right.
and it is hugely, hugely helpful. I've seen kids who, you know, started out as a freshman or a sophomore being very quiet and very to themselves, and then 2 years later they're doing stand-up comedy in front of their friends just for fun. The opportunity to stand up every week in a tournament and talk to people several times a day and work on that skill and practice and get more comfortable and less nervous. I mean, it's just...
It's priceless.
It is.
Public speaking is the greatest fear. I think greater than death. I mean, people are terrified to get up and speak. And if we can, and we've had great success with super shy kids who are suddenly coming into themselves and feeling good about themselves and able to stand up in front of a group.
That's great.
It's amazing.
Do you have any parents that write letters after they graduate or say thank you for coaching my students?
I've had, for Botanic Garden, we actually had one of my students' parents come and see us because she said it made such a huge difference in her life.
She had one evening she had a whole row of all her speech kids came in and just filled a row just to support her and be a part of it. And a lot of them go into careers, whether it's, you know, law or acting or just something where they're talking to people and
Even
doing
if you're
it.
in a company and you're head of a department or you have to make a presentation.
Yes,
it's
very business appropriate.
Absolutely
Business language.
wonderful skill to have. Yeah.
Yes. And tell me more, how did you originally get started in acting? Were your parents encouraging you to go into theater, or anyone has an actor in the family?
For
No.
not for you, but
No,
for
no,
me.
no, I was kidding.
Yeah, my mother was an actress with the Goodman Theater,
Oh, wow.
and my grandmother started the first regional theater in Wisconsin. So I grew up around theater all the time and was taken at a very young age to see the Milwaukee Repertory Theater, and so it was sort of a natural part of my childhood.
My parents were like, why? I'd grown up in New York, and until we moved to Florida in my junior year of high school, my plan was to learn languages and be a translator at the UN, because that was just what I thought I was going to do. And then we moved to Florida, and in my English class, the girl sitting next to me, who's my oldest friend, because we're still friends, to this day, turns to me and goes, "We're doing a play. Do you want to audition? Because you look like kind of like the girl." And I was like, okay. So the play was The Fantastics, and it was such a great group of kids. I had just moved to a new state, so I was kind of at a loss of where to go and what to do, and it just sort of became, it's that get bit by the bug, the acting bug. That's basically what happened. So then all of a sudden I'm like, on my college applications, like, acting. And my parents were very supportive, because they, as long as I went to school and as long as I, didn't just focus on one thing. So I took a lot of other courses while I took languages and I did acting, and ultimately they were very, very supportive and very loving.
Do you have any tips for future artists or actors? I mean, when do you realize to promote positive feedback and negative feedback? Like, when do you say to encourage them to go to acting, and when you don't see
It's
it
a
at
tough
all?
it's a tough gig, as Rosa could probably tell you more than me. But if you feel it strongly, you should just and grow a thick skin, because 99% of the time you're rejected.
Yes.
And that's what it's, right?
And also one of the things that in this day and age with so much social media and people becoming celebrity stars and for doing absolutely nothing except, I don't know,
You're thinking.
being a Kardashian.
I was just going to say Kardashian.
A lot of young people going into theater think, oh, I can just, be anybody. I don't have to have any kind of talent. And, sometimes it's true, but if you do want to be an actor, if you do enjoy acting and theater, you have to really study it and pay attention and be knowledgeable, and don't just think that you're going to go to Hollywood and become an E-star.
Keep taking classes.
taking classes,
Absolutely.
coaching,
Singing,
and
dancing,
Always,
acting.
always.
be working.
And like Amy said, have a thick skin, because there's a lot of rejection. For every 10 auditions you go, 10 or 15, you might get one, if you're lucky.
Yes.
Call back.
Right.
Even.
Yeah.
It's always good to focus on another promotion or another job. Or
Well, that's what my
Yes.
father said to me when he asked me what I was doing when I graduated. He said, what are your plans? And I said, I'm going to go to New York and audition. And he said, you might want to take some secretarial courses.
Yes, that's
Just
definitely
have,
smart.
just have a
And
living.
also, just to be a well-rounded person.
Yeah.
You don't want to you want to be a well-rounded person. College offers so many wonderful opportunities. My daughter is at Kansas University. She's majoring in Korean, but she just took a geography class because she was fascinated by something, and she just thought, hey, I have room, I have room to take, another class. I want to take a class in geography. And she's loved it, and she's really, enjoyed it and thrived from it. And I always tell kids, be a well-rounded person, no matter what you do, whether it's acting or whatever. Explore all your options. There's so many.
Rosa, when did you go back to the workplace after having all these kids and having your daughter?
I think it was just around the time where my youngest could stay home alone if she got sick. You know, because when your kids are little and they're sick, you don't want to send them to school. I was actually at my dentist's office, and his office manager was going to be leaving, and he kind of offered me the job, and I said, sure. I don't know anything about doing this, but he was very patient, and it was it's a great office. They're still my dentists, and I had so many great people working there. So we went, I started working there, and then about 5 years, into it, I started just getting itchy to, try something new. And I've always loved the schools because I just like the energy. I like working with young people. And Amy found out there was an opening at Glenbrook South.
Great.
So,
that was a
Well, you
lead.
can't think of a better match than Rosa with kids.
So
And it was
I got
terrific.
very lucky. I got very lucky, and I
They
work
got
in
lucky.
in the special ed department at Glenbrook South, and it is the most wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm biased, but it is the most wonderful.
Yes, yes. Please tell me how do you like the North Shore, especially the Glenview school systems? How do you see any special ed kids that actually grown from the experience of being in a classroom?
We have, just so you know, just recently, Misericordia opened up a bakery at the location where the old Glenview Grind used to be. Misericordia, A, has wonderful sweets, and B, they work a lot with special needs young people. So it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. It's a great establishment to support because the product is wonderful, and they employ a huge number of special needs young people, and gives them a place to work and support themselves, and it's wonderful. Zoop was another place over at Plaza del Prado that employs all sorts of people from the community. So Glenview and Northbrook, I find has been a really great
They've been amazing.
place
Great
to
sources for families.
for
Oh my
families,
gosh.
families of
So
all
helpful.
kinds.
And both schools have some of the best teachers, staff, administrators I've ever met. And they're amazing people and incredibly dedicated. And I think these kids are really lucky.
When my kids were little, we actually were considering moving. We had a 3-bedroom house, and one day I came home and I lost my mind because we were drowning in plastic toys. And so we started looking for a bigger house, and Melissa Hirsch, who is the assistant superintendent of District 30, she was principal at Willowbrook Elementary, where my kids went to school. And she said, you can't move from anywhere from here. This community, and Willowbrook is one of the best kept secrets in the world. You really don't want to leave this community. And she was right. And so we slapped on an addition and stayed. And I'm so glad we did. It was the best decision we could make.
Oh yes, I see so many students actually go from positive relationships, and then when they're out of the school, like, what do you do with them? They have like independent thought and independent counseling,
They're amazing.
independent work, and so I appreciate the Glenview school systems, even though the Glenview Library is such a great enriching.
Oh my gosh.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. There's so, and one of the we have so many wonderful little downtown areas. We have downtown Glenview, the original downtown Glenview, and then we have the Glen. We have downtown Northbrook. We have so many places nearby that offer so many places to do things. I mean, that was one of the greatest things that we found out when the book markets opened their doors and said, "Sure, come on in."
They are so open and so willing to support the arts, and I mean, this whole community is incredible.
And do you have any plans to actually expand the promenade players or have any more workshops?
We do.
We do.
We're actually doing a drama series at Barbara's Bookstore in Hawthorne Mall.
So the manager of the book market in the Glen has moved to Vernon Hills to do the Barbara's Bookstore at Hawthorne, and he has asked us to do some work there, and then hopefully once we do it there, we can come back to the book market so that if we can have, it's a series of play readings. So we have four or five.
So far. We're looking for more, but we're going to do it every weekend in January. So Friday and Saturday.
And we have so many friends that are in acting. We have so many fellow actors that are wonderful, and we've already, Amy and I actually did Steel Magnolias 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
3 years ago.
Oh, I love that movie.
And
We've gotten the old cast back together, and we're going to do
so
a
we're
reading.
going to do a staged reading of that. So yes, so we're working on new things.
Do you have any advice for high schoolers or college students that want to take up the acting bug or languages? What career should they start, or how they should actually talk to their parents about going and learning Korean or other languages?
You know what, I think one of the great things is that we have parents and a school community that are in conversation, so that parents can call the student's counselor and say, hey, Bobby wants to go into acting, what do you recommend? And that counselor can then say, you know what, they should talk to Mrs. Ticho because she does this and this and that. So I think it's a conversation that needs to be open with the students and the parents and the schools, and just keep the conversation, going and keep exploring.
Yeah, I mean, I think the advice that I would give to my kids in school is the same that I would give to my children, which is follow your dreams at this point.
Follow your dreams.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to conform to something that somebody else wants you to do.
They look for their wallet and say, like, what can I do in a year or 2 years? Or even 5 years, like, oh, I'm going to go into acting and do waitressing.
When you work, you go do something every day for many hours a day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Make sure you're doing something that you love.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Amy, Ticho, and Rosa, Nevin.
Thank
you so
Diana.
much.
Thank you for watching Real People, Real Matters with Diana Tulchinsky.